All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. So if you got your questions, go ahead and post them. It's either going to be to the right of the video or to the right of the video if you're on like a normal laptop, desktop computer, something like that. Or if you're on a mobile device, it's going to be below the video. All right. So I typically start with questions that were asked up to an hour before. So I'll start with Robert F. But first, I wanted to go through, what is the biggest issue that I see with people that are struggling to hit their driver straight? So how do you get that driver to go straight every single time? So the big piece is we want to be able to control the club face. So I'll go over kind of the three places that I see folks struggle with the driver to get that club face square. So if my dog can move out of the way here, you'll lay down over there. So basically what I see is, number one, the face rolling open in the backswing. So right away, we just see this face rolling open in the backswing. So when you do that, you've got to really roll that face back over in the start of the downswing. Usually they roll the face open in the backswing, and then they kind of carry that up to the top, and then they have to really roll that over. And all that rolling open and rolling over, it can make it really difficult to time things to get in the right place. The other issue that I see is people get up to the top of the swing. So maybe they're not rolled, they're bringing this club up fine, but then they get up to the top of the swing and they tend to want to cup that wrist at the top or go across the line. This trail wrist wants to get in there and push this club really, really across the line. Now, in general, going across the line isn't necessarily a bad thing. Usually, you can be perfectly in line and then go a little past parallel and you're considered across the line, and that's completely fine. But if we're taking our wrists and we're really, really opening the face, it can make it really, really difficult to get that face squared up in the downswing. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get the face squared up in the downswing. There are lots of players out there that cup the wrist at the top of the swing. If you look at Webb Simpson, Fred Couples, two guys that are cupping that wrist at the top of the swing, and they do just fine, major championship winners. But it can just make things a little bit more difficult. If you're struggling with getting that face square at impact and hitting your driver straight, then this may be something that you may want to look at to improve. So the last place, so the third place, is in the start of the downswing. So maybe we're in a great place here at the top, nice flat lead wrist, the face is fairly square, but then as we come down, we tend to want to kind of yank down on the club. A lot of times people are doing this in an effort to get lag, right? We're seeing that. So we cup the wrist in the start, and then now that face is open, and at the last second, I've got to really flip the face to get into impact. So what I would suggest that you do, if you're in any of these scenarios where you're rolling the face open, you're cupping the wrist at the top, or cupping the wrist in the start of the downswing, if you're doing any of these things, I would suggest to never open the face at all. Never open the face. So let me explain exactly how that would work. If you imagine if I took a tennis racket here and I were to hit a tennis ball, I wouldn't take the racket and go like this and then like that, right? I would take this racket and I would just cock my wrist back. This face is still square, right? I'm just cocking this wrist back, and I would come through kind of like that. So that's kind of the same thing you want to do in the golf swing. If I have this face square like this, I'm just going to kind of cock this wrist back and put my wrist in extension, my trail wrist in extension. The lead wrist will bow a little bit, and I would just bring it back to here, right? So my face is still square right here. So it's square right here. It's square right here, and then I'm bringing it back. It's still square, and I'm coming into contact with a nice square club face, as opposed to open here, probably open here, and then open here. Or you go up to the top of the swing, you have a cupped, and it's open. You're going like this, and it's open. Then you've got to really flip that back over. So what I would try to feel, and if you have a tennis racket at home, this is a good way to get this sensation, is to just kind of feel like you're bringing this wrist back. Your trail wrist is just doing this. So from this angle, it's just doing this. So that face is staying square. I'm not rolling over my wrists or anything. My wrist is just bending back like this. And I'm bringing the club back like that. And then I'm bringing it right back into impact, nice and square. So my wrist is just going like this. And the face is square the whole time when I'm doing that, right? I'm not going like this. This is going to be really difficult to time. I'm just going like this, right? So depending on, I would look at your swing on video, and depending on old tennis racket, my hand's all black, but depending on where you're opening up the face in the swing, I would look at this on video, would be how I would work through this. So I would just go at whatever point in the swing where you're struggling with this, right, and get to where you're in that right position with the club face and do some pausing reps. So let's say you're someone who rolls the face open in the takeaway, right? So I would just do a drill, and just a simple drill. It doesn't have to be a complicated drill. The simplest drills can work really, really well. But it's just a drill where we pause right there. So we'll bring the club up right here. We're going to keep this club face kind of pointing still down toward the golf ball, toward the target line. And you can see here, all I've done is just this a little bit with my wrists. And from there, I just go up to the top in the same way and then swing all the way through. So if it's happening in the takeaway, focus on that point right there. Focus on the point where the error is happening. You pause right here, then go up to the top and swing all the way through. These are just practice swings initially. Then once you start to get more comfortable with that, then I would shorten that pause, right? So I would go here, little pause, and go up to the top. Once you're getting that in a good place, then I would take out that pause altogether, go at about 50% speed, and add some fluidity to it. Again, no golf ball yet, but we're just trying to add some fluidity to this, going nice and slow. Once that looks good, bump it up to 75% speed. Then bump it up to full speed. Once it looks great in a practice swing, and basically you're getting where we're going like this, right, into impact, then I would add the golf ball. And I think you'll be very surprised at how easy it is to get that face square, right, at impact, getting the ball to start in the right direction. So that's if you're struggling with it right there. Now, if you're struggling with it at the top of the swing, right, then that's where we want to do the pause. Then we'll want to go, if you're not rolling the face open, but at the top you're going like this, then I would do some practice reps where you're going at the top, you're pausing, and all you're feeling is you're doing this with your trail wrist. That you're just bending your trail wrist back, and that's going to get you in this position right here. Your palm should be pointing up to the sky. The emblem of your glove should be pointing up to the sky. That's going to get you in that position. If you're going like this, right, so now my emblem's pointing that way, and my palm of my hand's pointing that way. We want to get it to be pointing like that. That's going to get that keep that face square, so that way you can rotate into impact. So if that's where it's happening, go through the same process. Do the pauses, shorten the pause, then go 50% with fluidity, build it up to full speed, then add the golf ball once you do that. Lastly, if you're doing it in the start of the downswing, right? So then I would go up to the top and I would start my downswing by feeling like my trail hand is just in this bent back position. My lead wrist is my emblem of my gloves kind of pointing out away from me instead of pointing toward me, pointing out away from me. And that's going to get that face nice and square so I can just rotate into contact. So I come down here, I would pause, I would do a little pump, I would go up and then back and through to create a little bit of momentum. Again, shorten the pause, get good with that, then add fluidity, go 50%, and then build up the speed from there. Once it looks good on video in the practice swing, you're getting that face, you're keeping that face square throughout the swing, then go ahead and add the golf ball. I think you'll be surprised at how straight and how easy it is to control your ball flight once you do that. So if you're struggling with your driver, take a look at those 3 places in the swing. First thing in the takeaway, at the top, and at the start of the downswing. Make sure you're not cupping that lead wrist and opening up that face. If you are, it's going to, like I said, you're going to have difficulty controlling your ball flight. Do this drill to get that to where you're staying square the entire time. That face never opens or closes. It stays square the entire time. And that makes it really, really easy to square it at contact. All right. So like I said, I'll start here with Robert F. So Robert F says, good morning. I'm really struggling lately with approach shots being either left or right of the green. My distance is good, but I just cannot get the aim correct, and it's really hurting me. Also, I'm starting to fade a lot of shots where I'm usually a draw player. So it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but if you're hitting a fade, it's because of one or two or both of these reasons. One, and the most likely reason, is the face is open to the club path, right? So what that means is the direction my club face is pointing is open to the direction my club head is moving through contact. So if I grab my club here, I'll use my angle finder here. If my face is open, and let's say my face is pointing to the right and my path is to the left, that's going to produce a fade. So I'd look at your swing on video and see if you are swinging to the left and see if you can tell if your face is open. The ball is going to start mostly in the direction of the club face, so that will be a good indication. If the ball is starting left, right, and it's fading, then that means that your path is definitely way left, right? So you may need to feel like you're swinging more into out. What I'd recommend doing is probably working through the move course. That's going to get you to shallow out the club and get that face square earlier in the swing. It's like that, very similar to what I was talking about earlier about keeping that face square throughout the entire swing. That's essentially what you're doing in the move, is you're getting that face square as soon as possible as you're starting down, and you're getting it on plane as soon as possible. But first, we need to close it. We need to overdo it, get it too close and get it too shallow and get kind of those smother hooks that start to the right and curve to the left. And then once you do that, then you can ease off of it. So without seeing your swing, Robert, it's hard to say exactly what you need to work on, but most likely the move is going to get you to where you have control of that. Because if the face, if the club is steep, right, then there's going to be compensations that you have to make in the swing to get it back on plane. And sometimes you may be overdoing it or underdoing it. So for example, if I'm up at the top and I'm starting down like this, I can either kind of continue down steep and kind of swing over the top, or I can come down like this and stand up and get the club to work from the inside and draw it. If you time it well, you can play well. Maybe that's what you were doing before and you were getting that nice draw. But now you may be coming down steep a little bit over the top and it's getting the fade. So it's hard to say exactly what's going on there without seeing your swing. The other thing that can cause fades is heel strikes, but you said your distance is pretty good. So if that is, usually heel strikes are going to take away your distance. So it's most likely coming down steep and trying to correct it somewhere in the swing. So I'd work on getting that club shallow, so that way you don't have to make any compensation in the swing. You can just keep rotating through with that square club face and be very consistent. So the move is what I would recommend to take a look at. So to get to the move course, click the house icon. That'll take you to the home page. Scroll down the home page. You'll see a list of all the courses that we offer, and then select the move from there. So Ryan B says, I want to ask an extended question about the shallowing of the golf swing. Where do I do this here? You do it right here. I mean, this is where it's in the box. Now, keep in mind, if it's a really loaded question, I'm usually not going to spend more than a few minutes on an answer, just so I can answer everybody's questions. So if it's something that's like you're expecting like an hour-long discussion about it, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to do that. So I don't know exactly what your question is, but understand that I'm only going to spend a few minutes on your answer so I can answer everybody's questions. I'm going to try to answer it as efficiently as possible. But yes, this is where you ask questions. But keep in mind, if it's a really loaded question, I'm not going to spend like 20 minutes on an answer for everybody. So Brett W says, rubber band video and Rory glove video really helped me yesterday at range with irons. However, driver ball now slices. Seems like when I back off a little from videos, it helps. What do you suggest? So if you're slicing, that means that your path is, that's really what to understand is that the easiest way to kind of boil down anything, you want to work from the physics of what's going on at impact to what's going on in your swing. So you may be keeping your lead arm on your chest here, but if you're going like this, right, now I'm coming over the top, right? So you need to get the lead arm on the chest, but working from the inside. So most likely what you need to do is work on the move or the never slice again course with the driver. Now it's much better to come over the top this way than to come over the top that way, right? But it's still going to cause a slice. So a slice, remember, is caused by the face being open to the path. So your path is left. So you need to swing more out to the right with a closed club face. So I try to feel like your arm is on your chest, but you're swinging out to the right. If you're right-handed, try to feel like you're swinging out toward first base with the club face pointed toward third base. That's what I would try to feel like to get that ball to kind of turn over for you the other way. Get some big hooks that start to the right, then curve to the left. Then that will help you to get the face more closed. Timothy, I saw you change the color of your question there. Sorry, I missed you. But we'll go back to Timothy here. Sorry about that. Every now and then I scroll too far. So Timothy R says, how much time do good golfers spend actually golfing compared to practice? I think it varies. Some players will play a lot. Some players won't. They definitely typically spend more time practicing than they do playing, I would guess. It's probably about equal. It takes a lot of time to practice. So that's why I would say it's probably about equal. But, there's probably some days where they don't even play at all. They just do a lot of practicing. So it really just depends on the player. Some players get better playing more. They see better results playing and being out on the course than they do practicing. And some players, you just got to find the right balance of both. I wish I knew an exact answer. Like you want to spend 2 hours practicing to every 2 hours on the course, but I just don't know. I honestly don't know what that would be. You just have to find what works best for you. So you got to find that happy balance for the most part. Personally, myself, I find that I actually get better if I play a little bit more versus practicing a little bit more. I find that if I spend a lot of time practicing, because I've experimented with this, playing. Basically, I try to play like once a week, but practice, like 10 hours a week. So that would be like, a 10 to 4 ratio. And I felt like I just didn't score very well out on the course because I just wasn't very as prepared for the scenarios. So you got to find that happy mix that works for you. Some players might be the opposite. Some players, if they played 3 times a week and only practiced for an hour, they may suffer versus if they, decided to only play twice a week and then take that time to practice a few extra hours or something like that. So you just got to find that happy mix that works best for you. There's no set in stone thing that you have to do. You just have to find what works best for you. It's going to take a little bit of trial and error to get there for sure. We just answered that one. So Bob L says, in my downswing, my hands are probably 6 to 8 inches to the right of my right hip at the point where the club is parallel to the ground. I can't seem to get the hands in front of the right hip where they should be in order to get shaft land and impact suggestions. So first, I would look at, are you getting some lag in the start of the downswing? So if you're starting to cast this club from the very, very beginning of the downswing, you're probably going to be, in this area, right? So if that is the case, you need to work through the top speed lag course and get in the reps and get there. It's one of the toughest things. The release of the club, creating lag and releasing the club properly are two of the toughest things to change in the golf swing. So be patient with it. Go as slow as you have to go to be able to do it. Start slow, build up the speed. It's not something you can just think about and then just suddenly be able to do it in your swing. If you could, you'd already be doing it, right? So you got to go through the repetitions. That's why we tell you to do a lot of repetitions, because it takes time to do that. You have to change motor patterns. You think about anything you've ever learned to do, you've learned to do it slow first and with a lot of detail, and then it's become second nature. So I always like to think about, everybody's learned how to grip the club. So I don't know if you remember when you learned to grip the club, the first time you did it, the first time I did it, I played baseball. So I gripped it like this, I had my thumb around it like that, and I gripped it like that. And I hit the ball like that. And then my dad taught me how to do it. And I tell you what, it felt really awkward to put my thumbs down, down the shaft like that. That felt really, really awkward to me. And then he wanted me to interlock my fingers, and that was even weirder. So every time I went to grip the club, I had to think about, okay, I have to put my thumb down, and then it has to be in these fingers like this, and then I have to wrap my finger down, then my right hand goes in. I had to think through it every single time. But now I just grab the club, and I don't even think about it. It just happens. I don't think about it at all. That's what you have to go through with learning the lag course, is that, you have to go through that learning process, and it just takes some time. So go to the Top Speed lag course and work through theirs. If you're getting lag, you're getting some lag in the swing, and then you're coming down to here and you're like this, then that's going to be the straight line release course. You need to work through the straight line release course to get to where you're releasing that club more out front. You need to work through it the same way. You have to learn the process. So I wish I knew a magic thing that was going to get you forward shaft lean right away. But the reality is that you just have to work through the courses and work through the reps. So that's my best suggestion, is to be patient with it. Try to get a little bit better every single day, and you'll get to where you're eventually getting some lag. And you're not going to go from this to this in one day. You're going to get a little bit more lag, and then a little bit more lag. And your release is going to get a little bit better. So it's going to get better along the way as you go through it. So that's what I'd recommend doing. So to get to those courses, click the house icon. That'll take you to the homepage. If you need the lag in the beginning of the downswing, do the Top Speed lag course. If you've already got the lag and you're just releasing it too early, do the straight line release course, and you'll see those courses on the homepage there. All right. So Robert P says, even though I try to keep the club inside my stand line, my divots face to the left. Right-handed golfer, have tried multiple things without success. So what I'd recommend doing is either the move course or the never slice again course. Now, you may not be slicing, you may be pulling or something like that, or pull drawing, but that never slice again course is all about getting your path to work into out. So it can't be that you're just trying to get the club to work from the inside the stand line. There's actually a great drill in the never slice again course where you're literally swinging 90 degrees into out to the right. And that's a great drill to get the feeling of what you need to do. So eventually you get to where you're kind of, okay, I'm swinging out that way. Now I'm swinging out that way. Now you're just easing off of it. So really the best way to fix any issue is to exaggerate the opposite of what you're doing. Exaggerate the opposite to get the desired result that you want. It's going to be so much faster if you exaggerate it rather than trying to get it a little bit less to the left, a little bit less. Exaggerate it. Get it to go as far out to the right as you possibly can. Get those snap hooks and blocks that start to the right and curve to the left, assuming you're right-handed. And well, I assume you would be if your path is left. So that's what I would recommend doing. So never slice again course. The move course would also be a good one for that. Again, these are both courses that get you to start hitting hooks out to the right, and then we want you to ease off of that at the end. So to get to those courses, work through those drills, exaggerate as much as possible, click the house icon, go to the homepage, scroll down the homepage, you'll see a list of all the courses, select the slice and the move course to get that path working more into out. All right, so Steve L says, I bought the Swing Caddy SE200 Plus, which Clay recommended. We actually don't necessarily recommend the Plus. We recommend the original one. The Plus one we found not to be quite as accurate. So we started recommending the PRGR. But the Plus is fine. It's just not as accurate as the original SC200. Yeah, so you're saying the distances aren't accurate. Is there a way to recalibrate? So one thing to keep in mind is that a couple things with these launch monitors. The distance is estimated, all right? So it's estimated. So that doesn't mean it's not actually tracking your golf ball. What it's doing is it's taking the speed and it's tracking the speed and the ball speed and the club that you told it what it is, and it's calculating a distance based off of that, right? It's not going to be 100% accurate every single time, especially if you don't hit it well. We found that it's actually surprisingly accurate if you hit the ball solid. But if you do not hit the ball solid, then it's not going to be very accurate. So if you're hitting big slices and hooks and chunks and things like that, it's not going to give you an accurate number. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Really, really solid shots were generally pretty accurate. Now, I believe there is a way that if the lofts are a little bit off on there, I believe there's a way. I don't know about the plus, but I know on the original version, that the 200, that there is a way that you can adjust the lofts on there. So I would look at your manual. I don't know how to do that offhand, but I would look at your manual and look in there and see if there's a way that you can change the lofts of the clubs to maybe make them a little bit more accurate. But understand that these devices are really meant to just kind of give you your speed numbers, mainly your club head speed. They're not meant to lock in and tell you exactly what your distances are. If you want really, really accurate distance numbers, fortunately, you just have to purchase a really, really expensive launch monitor to do that. So, but on solid shots, they're going to be fairly accurate. But if the lofts are way off, then it may be a little bit off. Excuse me. All right, so Craig B says, hi, Q. Craig here from the UK. I've been a part of the TSG for about 3 months, and my game is coming on brilliantly. My club driver has a stiff shaft that I'm hitting it so well now. I've gained 30-plus yards with club head speed increase of 15 miles per hour to 106 miles per hour. That's awesome. Really amazing, but regular shafts in my irons at a speed of 76 miles per hour approximately. If I increase my swing speed even more, at what point should I be thinking about stiff shafts? It's really something you would have to go in to get professionally fitted to know for sure. If you gain a lot of speed, it may help you to be a little. It may help with your accuracy a little bit to have a stiffer shaft. But the only way to know that is just to go professionally fitted. So if you feel like at some point you're losing a little bit, it's not really going to affect the speed so much. It might, but not so much. It's more about being able to control it, because the more the more speed you have, the more the shaft is going to bend. So if you have a really whippy shaft, it can be really difficult to kind of time the squaring of the face and the release of the club and things like that. It's not generally going to affect the speed that much, because most likely you're still going to be getting it to kick at the same time. But it could a little bit. The main thing here is control. So if you find that you're having trouble kind of controlling the golf ball as your speed is continuing to climb, then you may want to look in to getting professionally fitted to see if that can help. But unfortunately there's just no way to know if there is without doing that. So I recommend going to your local club fitter and seeing if anything will help. So Brian B says, please talk about the shallowing of the golf swing. Is it a supination of the right hand on the downswing? My swing is already flattened by two knuckle stronger grip. So basically, the shallowing of the club is just getting it on plane. So that's all you're trying to do. So if you're already getting the club on plane, you don't need to shallow it anymore, right? Because then you're overdoing it. You could over shallow it. So it doesn't do me a lot of good, right, to go like this, right? Because now this club is way under plane, and to get it back on plane, I'm going to have to kind of go like this to get it back. So if you're already shallow, then there's nothing more you need to do to shallow out the club. You're good to go. But if you do need to shallow it, then I recommend this feeling of turning the doorknob. So that's not only is it the supination of the wrist a little bit, of the right wrist, it's also what you would call external rotation of your arm. So your humerus here, your bone up here in your upper arm, in your shoulder, would be going like this. So that's external rotation. This is internal rotation. That is external rotation. So if you imagine, if I'm going to turn a doorknob, I'm doing that motion. So my wrist is supinating and my arm is going into external rotation. So that motion right there is shallowing out the club. but you can overdo it, right? So yes, that's that motion that you're trying to do to shallow out the club as you're coming down. So it's that right there. So you can see that's supination, and it's also that external rotation of the arm. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, that's what you're trying to do. So Richard I says, hi guys, I have a couple of questions about the firing of the hips and body torso rotation through the shot. I, for some oddball reason, always thought the torso never moved. It was only the hips that fired through, and then the torso followed. Now I know that not only do the hips fire, but also torso follows also for that plus minus 45 degree hip angle and 20 plus or minus 22 degree shaft angle. I have always, and then it kind of cut off. So yeah, so in the start, we actually have a great video in, I think it's the straight line release section. Let me check. It's called the momentum train drill. I'll have you go look at that video. That's a great video. So I'll talk about it a little bit here, but this video is a really good visual. Let me check and see where that is exactly. So you can search momentum train. So real quickly, there is a great, yeah. So this is actually in the power turn course. For some reason, I always thought it was in the straight line release. So it's in the power train course, the momentum train. So anyway, it's in level 3 of the power turn course. Talks about sequencing of the hips and the shoulders and stuff like that. So basically, yeah, so let's talk about the search engine real quick, because I don't think everyone's real familiar with that. It's awesome. It works really well, surprisingly really well. So in the upper right-hand corner, if you're on the website, there's a little search box. So you can search anything. So search momentum train, you'll find this video that I'm talking about. If you're struggling with a slice, you can type slice in there, and you'll get a bunch of videos about it. You can, if you want to learn, if you want to find every video that we have about the hips, you can type in the hips, and there's a ton of videos about the hips. So, so yeah, I highly recommend using that if you're ever looking for something in particular. We also, if you're on a mobile device, it's very easy to find as well. So in the upper right-hand corner, just select that icon, and that will take you to that will expand a menu, excuse me. That will expand a menu. So the horizontal line, select that. That'll expand a menu. If you scroll down the bottom of that menu, you'll find the search box right there. So you can still use it on the mobile site. It's just a little bit harder to find. But yeah, you're exactly right. So hips are typically going to be anywhere in that 45 degree range. Somewhere in that 40 to 50 degree range is typically where you're going to see the hips. Now, there's some players that don't have their hips as open. So if you look at kind of like a Kenny Perry, his hips are probably 25, 30 degrees open. I don't know his exact numbers, but just based on what I've seen in his swing, excellent ball striker, one of the best ever, and not really, really open hips. If you look at someone like a Dustin Johnson and Jim Furyk, their hips are really, really open, right? Obviously, they're very good ball strikers as well. So, but in general, you're going to see the hips somewhere around that 45 degree range. Chest, you're exactly right. 22, 25 degrees open, 20 to 30 degrees open is typically where you're going to see there. So that 22 and a half, you're exactly right. So if we're thinking about the chest, basically our rib cage, right? Yeah, that's typically what you're going to see. Now, don't get the rib cage and the shoulders mixed up. My shoulders can move independently of my rib cage. So my chest, my rib cage here can be 20 to 30 degrees open, and my shoulders can be square to slightly open. That's what you're going to see in most tour players, is you're going to see those shoulders slightly open typically. You'll see some of them are very open, but usually you'll see that they're just slightly open with the shoulders, somewhere in that 10 to 15 degree range. And then the chest, the rib cage, is going to be somewhere in that 20 to 30 degree range. So it's all about, we're going up the top here where the hips are going, and then the next point in the sequence is my rib cage, and then it's kind of all bringing everything in there. So that momentum train, that drill in there, is a great one to help you with that. What you're doing in that video, you're taking an alignment stick, putting it through your belt loops here, putting another alignment stick across your shoulders, and just trying to get that the sensation of how those are kind of lining up as you're coming through and getting the feeling of, okay, if my hips are getting 45 degrees open, my shoulders need to be here, then I need to be going like this, right? And getting that proper feeling. So that's a great drill from the Power Turn course. It's from the level 3 of the Power Turn course. Go check it out. It's called the Momentum Train drill. Great for sequencing the hips and the shoulders. Check it out and see if you can improve your sequencing through there. All right, so let's keep moving through here. So Louis V says, feel is not real, you often say, and it is so true. My takeaway, feels bigger than what it is. What do you suggest to help turn more? The Power Turn series or something else? So yeah, absolutely, the Power Turn series. That's what the Power Turn is all about. Specifically to get you started, the wide takeaway drill, because that's typically where it breaks down for most people, is they tend to just kind of lift the club up and they don't really turn the chest or turn the shoulders. So if you get the hands kind of going out wide, don't get a lot of bend in your arms right away. If we're bending our arms right away, kind of going like this, our turn is going to be very, very little, right? So we need to if you have the sensation of your hands kind of staying in front of your chest in the start of the swing, look how much I've turned already. I've turned a ton. Whereas if I just got to go like this and I just lift the club up, the club's at parallel right now, but my shoulders have barely turned at all. So if I have that sensation of my hands are staying in front of my chest, I can get a much bigger turn and get in a much a better place in my swing. So that's what I'd recommend doing. There's a wide takeaway drill in that Power Turn course. I believe it's in the level 1. That's what I'd recommend working on. So go to the homepage by selecting the house icon at the top of the page right now. Then go to or if not right now, if you want to stick around for the rest of the office hours, but and then go to the Power Turn course, and you'll see in level 1, you'll see that wide takeaway drill. That's what I would probably recommend for you starting out for sure. So Gufran A says, what to do to close the club face in downswing after doing the lag. So hopefully when you're doing the lag, now one thing you want to keep in mind, and this is what I kind of talked about in the beginning of the office hours, not sure if you saw that, Gufran, but basically a lot of times when I see people, when they do lag, they go like this, right? So that's opening up the club face. So you want to make sure that when you're getting lag, that you're not doing this action. You're keeping that lead wrist nice and flat and the trail hand bent back. That's going to allow you, if I do that, you can see I'm still, so lead wrist is flat, trail wrist is bent back. I'm still able to get some great lag here. So you don't want to be going at it like this, where you're really turning the wrist and open the face. So the idea here to to get the club face square is to not open it in the first place. Keep that club face square as you're getting lag, and you won't have to close it down at the golf ball and make a compensation. So keep that wrist nice and flat and that wrist bent back as you're getting lag, and you'll be in much better shape. So Steven says, what is the average club head speed for a 61-year-old old man of average fitness and flexibility for his age? So I think for an amateur, I think it's 85 miles per hour, I believe is the average. So I have for our distance clinic presentation, I have it in there, and I think it's 85. It might be 87. But let me look at that real quick, and I can tell you exactly what it is. I know what slide it is in my presentation here. All right. Okay, here we go. So average for an amateur, it's not loading for some reason. There we go. Yep, so average for an amateur in their 60s is about 84.7. For a tour player, someone on the Champions Tour is 102.4. So basically, you don't want to necessarily, it's nice to know that information to kind of see where you're at compared to the average person. but I wouldn't necessarily take that information. So if you're at 85 miles per hour right now, I wouldn't necessarily take that information and be like, okay, well, I don't need, I'm fine. Because we see people all the time that gain tons of club head speed by going through our 20-minute distance fixed course. So the way that I would think about it is, if I've never done any speed training before, like basically if you haven't done our 20-minute distance fixed course, what I'd be thinking is, okay, what's my club head speed right now? Now I want to add 12 to 13 miles per hour to it, because that's the average gain that we get from people going through the course. And I'll be honest with you, most people are going through the course are 50, 60, 70 years old. Most of them are not 30s and 40s. Most of them are, older. These are the more avid golfers, the older people out there. So that's we're seeing great results with everybody. So I don't want you to think we're seeing 12, 13 miles per hour. Well, that's just 30-year-old people that are going through the course. Trust me, there's a lot more people over 50 going through the course than under 50. It's not even close. So, and we're seeing these kind of results, 12 to 13. So that's the way I would think about it. I would think about it in the sense that, okay, what am I swinging right now? If I haven't done the 20-minute distance fixed course, my goal should be at least 10 miles per hour more than that. And that's what we're seeing on average when you go through the course. So highly recommend that. And when you think about, just to put that into terms of yards, 12 to 13 miles per hour is over 30 yards of distance. So if you think about that, the average distance, if I go back to my slide there, and I look at it, what did it say? Average driving distance for someone who's in their 60s is 194 yards. So let's say you are at that average, that around 85 miles per hour, and then you get up to where it's like 92, right? Or actually, if you're at 85, it would be getting up to where you're at like 97. Then you're looking at your yardage goes up to 220, 225, somewhere in that range. So that's huge. That's a big difference there. So that's what I'd recommend doing, kind of looking at it in that way, instead of, it's good to know where you're at compared to the average people in your age group. But if you're looking to set a goal, I wouldn't set a goal based on that. I would set a goal based on where you are right now. If you haven't done speed training, your goal should be at least 10 miles per hour. If you've gone through the 20-minute distance fixed course, then I would be going through the 20-minute. If you're trying to get more, then I'd be going through the 20-minute distance fixed course again. But you can't expect to get the same kind of results. Basically, every mile per hour after you get that initial, it is going to be a lot harder, right? So it's going to take more work to get those rest of the miles per hour. But that first 10 usually comes the easiest. So I highly recommend you at least do that. So Richard I says, awesome. Thank you. No problem, Richard. John A says, Clay wants the step in the step drill to start with the backswing. I believe him, but I find it difficult. Makes sense for a batter, but then the bat is already back. Right. So if you're a batter, right, your bat's like this, and then you're going like that, right? So it's the same thing in the golf swing. The reason why you're finding it difficult is because you've done it differently forever, right? So if somebody was a batter and they started here, right, and then you told them you want them to go like that, it's going to be a big difference, right? They're going to have a hard time with it initially. So the key here is, if you go up to the top of the swing, you're loaded up, and you don't have any momentum going to your lead side, and you start down with your arms, it's too late. Basically, you're going to get what we would call a false weight shift, where you're only getting that weight shift because your arms are flying in front of your body, right? So it's really the momentum of your arms and the club swinging in front of your body that's bringing you all the way around, right? You want it the other way around. You want it to where it's the momentum of your body that's bringing the club all the way around. That's kind of that momentum train video they were talking about. In order to make that happen, we've got to get our weight shifting to the lead side. Now, what we do in the step drill, it's exaggerated, right? We're trying to get you moving as soon as the club's starting to go back. In reality, in the golf swing, it's happening more up here, right? That's where it's happening. But the best way to get the feeling for anything is to exaggerate the opposite as much as possible. So that's what that drill is really doing, is it's exaggerating it as much as you can, so you can get that proper sequence even easier. So get out of your comfort zone, and it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward. But I'm telling you, once you kind of get the hang of it, you're going to feel how you can use the ground to powerfully swing the club instead of it's going to feel so much more effortless instead of really just having to throw your arms at it and having to time it every single time. All right. So Richard I says, my question was geared more towards how to fire and rotate the hips and the following of the torso. So like what John was talking about, that step drill is going to be really the best one. The key is getting that weight shift to the lead side in the right timing. Because if you don't, your arms are already firing. So in order to get the hips to kind of lead the way, you need to get to your lead side. And you also need to reflex those legs, right? So I can go up to the top, get to my lead side, but if my legs are straight, I'm not going to be able to rotate. I'm just going to fire my arms. So I need to kind of fall to my lead side. If you go look at tour players' golf swings on YouTube, I highly urge a lot of people to do this. Go look and try to absorb what's going on. Take a look at like what they're doing with their legs, what they're doing. That's really a great way to learn and see what's going on. Look from face on down the line. What you're going to see is as they get up to the top, you're going to see how they're starting to move forward. And as they're starting to move forward, they're flexing their legs, right? They're getting more like this. That's allowing them to rotate as they're coming through. It's also allowing them to get the handle lower so that they can get the more forward shaft lean, right? So the more I can open up my body, the more I can get my hands low, the more forward shaft lean I'm going to be able to generate. That's how they're able to get here, right? If my legs are straight, I'm going to be high. My hands are going to be high, and I'm not going to be able to rotate. It doesn't matter how good my weight shift is. I might be able to get ball first contact, but I'm most likely going to flip. I'm going to look like this, right? I want to get to where I'm more like that, right? Where I'm coming in, I'm really de-lofting this club. I'm creating a lot of power with my lower body. I'm getting lots of compression on this ball because I'm creating so much speed, and I'm getting my hands a lot lower in order to do that. So that's really what needs to happen. Is you want to get to your lead side sooner than what you're doing, and get the flex in those legs and rotate. Get those knees moving apart and use those legs to rotate your body open. All right, so let's keep moving here. So Anton D says, at the straight line release point, 30 to 45 degrees after impact. In some of Clay's videos, the club head is more or less square, and others it's 45 degrees closed. What is correct? For me, if the club face is square at impact, I naturally end up with the face closed at the straight line release. It really can be either or, because it only matters what it is at impact. It can be either or. So I'd be focusing on the square face at impact. There's going to be some players that have what we call more of an under release. So if you look at like a Brooks Koepka, a Jordan Spieth, right? They keep the hands kind of staying under as they release the club, and that face is kind of staying square, right? It's not rolling over. Whereas if you look like a Rory McIlroy, for example, he's coming in, he's got this face square at impact, and as he's releasing this club out front, his hands are kind of rolling over and that face is closing. Neither one of them are wrong. They're both basically in the same position at impact, which is the thing that matters the most. So that's what I'd be focusing on. It sounds like you're on the right track. If your face is square and you're rolling, you have more like a rolled release, like a Rory McIlroy, but it doesn't mean that you need to try and get the face square in the release, because what will likely happen is you'll leave the face open at impact. So I would do what comes naturally to you, especially if you're getting that face square and you're getting that forward shaft lean at impact. All right. So Richard I says momentum training. Thanks. No problem. Richard. So Daniel W says, when chipping, do you want to have a lot of shaft lean or no shaft lean? So you want to have some shaft lean. It really depends on, I guess for a chip is a shot that you're intending to get on the green and rolling it as soon as possible. So you want to have some forward shaft lean to have some stability, because if you don't, then if the force is leading, or sorry, if the mass is leading the force, which would be no forward shaft lean, right, or negative, right, backward shaft lean, then you're not going to have that stability at impact. You want to have some stability at impact. So you want the force leading the mass there. And you do want to de-loft the club some, so that way you can get it low and on the green and rolling as soon as possible. So that's what I would say for a chip. Now, if it's a pitch, it really depends on what kind of shot you're hitting. Now, you want forward shaft lean with all of these pitch shots. It's just a matter of how much. So if you're trying to hit a low pitch shot, you would want more forward shaft lean, because that's going to de-loft the face, and that's going to get you to get the ball lower. So, a low pitch shot would maybe look something like this, right? When I'm coming into impact, that'd be a low booming kind of pitch shot. Starts out low, hopefully kind of comes in, skids on the green, and then comes to a nice stop there. A normal trajectory pitch shot may look something like this, right? Where I've got some forward shaft lean here. The ball's going to come up with a kind of a mid trajectory, get up in the air and kind of land soft. If I'm trying to hit a high one, so let's say the green's way above your feet, right? It's up high. You need to get the ball up high quickly to kind of get up on the green. Then what I would do is maybe just release a little bit early. You're still going to have some forward shaft lean here, but you let the club kind of release and kind of pass in front of the hands there to get the club in the air. Now, I don't want to be going like this to get it up high. I still want to have some, but it's just going to be a little bit less. And obviously, you'd open the face a little bit to give you some more loft to get it up there as well. So that's, go out there and practice that. Practice hitting low, mid, and high trajectory shots, and get a feel for, how much forward shaft lean and what kind of shot you work best. Because some people like to hit that low one, and that's what works best for them. Some people, maybe that middle trajectory is what works best for them. So you got to find what you like and what works best for you. And, that can be kind of your go-to, and then just use the other ones when you need them. So real quickly here, we don't have any more questions right now. So we do have a couple minutes left with office hours. So if you got a question, answer one. So no office hours tomorrow, real quickly about that. So no office hours tomorrow. Robin will be doing office hours on Thursday and Friday, but no office hours tomorrow. I'll be back on a Monday. So Richard I says, sometimes I'll shank my pitch. This sometimes when practicing the shorter three, or how can I better get the face square at the top, the dreaded S. So basically, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but shanks with pitching are usually due to, number one, standing too close to the golf ball. This is some very common I see with people when they're pitching. I think it's just because it's a shorter club, it's a shorter shot. They try to keep everything a little bit more compact, kind of like this. So if you're looking like this, give yourself some space, right? Because if you're standing too close, basically if you move your hips toward the ball at all, you're bringing that hosel in there. It's just going to be harder. You're just going to want to move your hands away from your body. So if you're seeing that you're kind of like this, give yourself some space here for your hands, so that way you're not pushing them out. Another thing with pitch shots, as I see, is we'll kind of dip the legs and we'll get the hips kind of moving toward. We'll kind of do this kind of action, right? So again, that's moving the hips toward the golf ball. That's taking away space for your hands. That's going to cause some shanks. So I would try to feel like your weight is forward and you're kind of pivoting off. You're kind of keeping your butt back here, and you're pivoting off your left hip here with lots of space, and that's going to allow you to swing that club through there nicely and not get that hosel moving toward the golf ball. The last piece would be if you're cutting across the ball too much. So if you're hitting pitch and you're cutting across this way, or you're hitting a pitch and you're swinging too much from the inside, then you're effectively making the face smaller when you do that. And a lot of times people open the face with a pitch, so that makes the face a little bit smaller. And then you add cutting across it, and that makes the face even smaller. So let's say you're like this, and you open the face a little bit, and you swing to the left. Well, I'm just bringing that hosel. I'm giving, my clubs coming into the golf ball like this. The hosel's headed right for the ball. So I only have this tiny little area. Whereas if I had the face square, now I have this whole big area to hit the ball on. So that's what I try to do, is take a look at your face and path as well and see if you're cutting across the ball too much. And I would try to match up your face and your path the best that you can to maximize the size of the face instead of bringing the hosel in there. So hopefully that helps, Richard. So like I said, no office hours tomorrow. We'll be back here Thursday. So if we don't have any more questions, I'll give you another minute to ask a question. If we don't, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But yeah, I'll give you another minute to ask a question. But since we don't have any, we'll wrap it up a little bit early if we're done. All right, so if we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So like I said, I'm going out of town today, so won't have office hours tomorrow, and won't have office hours tomorrow, and Robin will be doing office hours on Thursday and Friday. So anyway, and Clay is calling me now, so I gotta go. We'll talk to you later. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.